computer. Hello and welcome back to this podcast. I'm so excited today. We are blessed with a duo of amputees today. I have Maja and Rosie, her Great Dane. Welcome to the show, Maja. And
Here's Rosie. Let's
welcome,
really
Rosie.
what's important, really.
I know we got nap time. That's okay. You know what? I have my two chihuahuas sitting right on either side of me, sleeping right now. And I've learned to take their collars off because they tend to get up, stretch, and shake, and that's usually in the recording. So we should have some peace and quiet today. It looks like all of our dogs are in nap time. Welcome, Maja.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you on here. And, so people understand, again, this is Limb Loss, Limb Difference Awareness Month. I am an above knee amputee if you're new to the show. And this month, I love having people that just kind of really stand out in my mind this month, focusing on bouncing back, which, metaphorically, and then those of us with running blades, we bounce a lot. It's kind of fun. It's like our own little mini trampoline. This story about your life is a delicate one. In my mind, it's a delicate one, although I know you've been dealing with it for years. For me, as an outsider, I like to be gentle about this stuff, but could you just tell us like where you're originally from, what your childhood was like, your family life, things like that, and what kind of led up to what happened?
Sure, yeah. So I'm originally from Bosnia, and I don't know if actually when I was born, it was former Yugoslavia, and I don't know if your audience remembers, but there was a genocide in Bosnia in early '90s, and my family and I we were stuck in a part of our town where we were from, surrounded by two armies, no food, no water, no electricity, no medicine, just basically trying to survive. And during that time, we had, I don't know, 10, 15 people were dead every day, injured all the time. We were just trying to figure out how to survive. And one day I was just hanging out with 5 of my friends in a courtyard of our building when a bomb exploded, killing all 5 of my friends instantly, and I was severely injured. So that's what happened to me in my limb loss. In my situation, which is more extreme than most, because we didn't have any medical help. We had a makeshift hospital. They took me to that makeshift hospital, and because there was no way to fight the infection, due to infection, to save my life, they actually had to amputate my leg below the knee a couple times. They try to save the knee because, as you probably know, it's really, really important.
It is.
And eventually, I was evacuated. A couple months later, I was evacuated to first Frankfurt, Germany, a U.S. Army hospital in Frankfurt, Germany, for medical treatment, where I had daily surgeries. And then from there, because they had established that my injuries were really too great, I had to be transferred to the United States for medical treatment. And that's how I ended up in the United States and where I am in life. So
Wow, that's okay. So how old were you when this happened?
I was 16.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
Okay.
when the war started, I was 13. And when I was injured, I was 16. And during that time when, after I was injured, I didn't speak any English at the time. And I was in that makeshift hospital probably for about 2 months. And during that time, my father was also injured.
Wow.
So when the lady came to rescue me, it was a lady from England. Her name is Sally Becker. She's just somebody who watched TV in London and was like, okay, I'm tired of watching stuff on the news. I'm going to go do something about it. And she, there's a lot of madness in what she did, a lot of bravery. And she just basically said, I'm going to go there and try to help some people. And she got a permission to rescue 3 injured children from that area, because nobody could get in or get out. So I was one of the candidates, because you had to be injured enough to kind of save your life, but not too much where you're going to die on the way out, and not too little where it's just a waste.
Yeah.
So I was one of the candidates, and what they did, my mom was there because my father was injured.
Okay.
So my mom was there going between us, sort of helping each of us. So they carried me to his bed, and 20 minutes later, I had 20 minutes to make a decision. 20 minutes later, my parents were unable to come with me, but I found myself going with the stranger, not knowing where I was going, when or if I would be back or anything.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he was just to set off this journey into a life that actually, interestingly enough, when I look back, I would not change one thing.
I was going to ask you, but then I was like, do I ask that question? Because that's a big, I mean, I say the same thing, but again, I elected to go this route, and I'm grateful I had the strength to do it. But that's interesting that there's not many people that haven't had something life altering like this that feel like, if you're successful and you figured out your mindset to be positive, it ends up taking you to a path of people, meeting people, doing things you probably never thought would happen, right? You probably
Right.
never thought about
It
coming to
was,
America.
I never, it's, we're all so proud of our home and our country and everything. And I was too. I remember, we stay there to defend our home. And
Yeah.
we did, but with the end of the thing, like we lost everything. Like my family, everything was lost multiple times, because my city had two wars, and the two different armies came in and destroyed and took everything that we ever built and had in our lives. And what you realize is that out of all of it, really nothing mattered except your family and your friends and your memories that you've created. Not like all we missed was the pictures. Nothing else really actually mattered. So it almost, like this injury sort of in some weird way snapped me out of this patriotic pride of,
Yeah.
standing there and fighting for your home and for the country and for the apartment that you live in and for the
Yeah.
house that you live in, when at the end of the day, just go somewhere where it's safe, be safe, create, close friends and family around you, and actually shift the meaning of what life is all about. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, when we're all at the staring at death, most things really actually don't matter.
Right. No, it gives you a little different perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On what you've got to take with you and what you need to just let go of.
Mhm.
Um, so mom and dad, they stayed.
Mhm.
Did you have siblings?
I still do have a younger brother.
Okay.
He was at the time 14, and he was just at home and basically just trying to survive. We had no food, and I remember, when I reunited with my family 2 years later. So after I came to US 2 years later,
Wow.
I was able to bring my parents and my brother here, and they actually still live in Maryland.
Oh,
That's where I
good.
was brought. So they live in Maryland. They live 5 minutes away from each other. My brother is
Oh,
married, has two girls, and all that stuff. So I do remember when we reunited, my mom was, we were talking about it. We were actually talking specifically about my brother. And
yeah.
I said to her, I need you to pay attention to him,
Yeah.
because everybody's sort of wrapped up around Maja, because Maja got injured. Maja had over 100 surgeries. Maja's still
Mm,
dealing with her injuries, yes.
yeah.
But those are things that are so visible, and everybody's sort of like, oh, poor Maja, let's help her, let's help her. I have support
Right.
everywhere. But I was like, he is going through his own version
Yeah.
of issues of everything. And she said, yeah, I remember he was alone. My mom was with me, who was injured and couldn't do anything, and my father, who was also injured, couldn't do anything. And she was going back and forth. So he was at home
At
at
14.
14. And she said, I would come home. He's sitting. She said she had a neighbor check on him. And she said the neighbor said she would go check on him. And he's just sitting in the dark at the apartment by himself crying.
Oh,
And
that's
he's
heartbreaking.
hungry. You have children, so I don't know if
Yeah,
you have boys, but
I do.
teenage boys, they
Uh,
eat. 14, he's like, he was crying to my mom, I'm hungry, I just wanted some food.
yeah.
And to have that as a parent, to hear that and to have that happen, I mean, it's just a really horrific time.
Yeah.
And to think that all we had to do was leave prior for it to happen, and then never had that experience, it would have been kind of kind of interesting, but I do have to say that going through it, seeing 5 dead people, that were instantly killed, seeing people get killed every single day nonstop, made me appreciate and live life in the way that I never would have had that not happened.
Yeah. No, I'm sure. And like we said, perspective is everything. And when you can pull yourself out of your moment right then and there, and you kind of step back for a minute, there's a lot more to be grateful for than there is to be complaining about, I think. And you're like a prime example. I mean, you just told me, I mean, in your own words, that this path, as horrific as it started, has actually been a blessing for you and your family, which is wonderful. That I was going to ask, like, are they still there? Do they? But I'm glad you got into that. So
they're still here. And it's my mom has a lot of, because I was on her watch when I got injured, and I snuck out. She didn't even know that I snuck out. She thought I was at home, and I was 16. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go downstairs, talk to my friends, and come back. And she thought I was there, so I snuck behind her back, literally went, and bam, she heard a bomb. She started looking for me, and she couldn't find me, and she looked down the window, and she saw me basically in a pool of blood with 5 dead people. And she has always blamed herself for allowing that to happen. First of all, when you have a teenager as stubborn as me, and as handful as I was, that there's nothing you can do to control it. Number one. Number two, I told her, I was like, if I could do anything over again, I would do it all. Like, for me, I gave up a leg, and I gave up some of my mobility, and and have some daily struggles that I just have to deal with that most people don't. But to me, that was a worth thing to give up in order to gain so much perspective and so much appreciation for life, to live the life with actual true meaning and the depth, and not be on this autopilot that most people seem to be on, where it's like, everything is blocked. You get up, you go to work, you do this, and then we end up with, I don't know, midlife crisis and so on, and regrets.
True. And you gave me just like the idea that I'm a mom of teenage boys. Like, I was thinking from your mom's perspective, all this, I would totally feel the same way. I'd be like, I shouldn't have allowed that to happen. I should have been more watchful. I should have. So I'm sure she's had to deal with a lot of those things as well. I mean, yeah, as a parent, I always call it mom guilt when the kids were growing up, because I homeschooled mine. And I just remember every night going to bed with some sort of guilt. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. I should have done it this way. You think all that, you replay the day and think, what could I have done better? And so I'm just thinking, your mom, she and I should talk.
Yeah, well,
I'd love to meet her.
hindsight is 2020, and nobody gives you, sort of instructions what to do with the kid, and every kid is different, and every parent is different, and every parent carries their own baggage that they have to deal with. And I think what makes a great parent is really having to ask those questions. Not that you're not going to make a mistake, and not that you're not going to do a bad job or a good job, but maybe you should have done this or could have done that. But I think what makes a great parent is actually asking those questions and learning, and every time getting better. And that's all we can do, no matter whether it's parenting or, I don't know, cutting the lawn. All we can do the best that we can.
Exactly. So some things that came to mind when I was looking at some of your story and everything was, well, one, this happened, and I can't imagine seeing your friends, but also the fact that you had all those surgeries. I mean, I'm like, gosh, I had like 10 in like 5 years. I can't imagine 100. But the fact that the comment that's made is that you had it without anesthesia, that gives us perspective when we are in a nice little hospital and know it's coming and things like that. Like, wow. I mean, that kind of gives me an idea of what kind of personality you are. And the fact that you snuck behind your mom's back gives me some more idea of why you're probably successful now, and you're rising above it, right? And bouncing back. Tell me, when you got here to the US, is that when you first started learning English?
Yeah.
And did you go into school? How did that all?
So,
and how many surgeries happened here? Did you have a bunch here too?
Oh, so
Most
most
of
of the
them?
surgeries happened outside. So just after I was injured, besides the fact that I lost a huge amounts of blood,
Mm,
um, and even actually, ironically enough, that the because we were all civilians, so we didn't have an army or anything. So people that from the army that would come in and attack us, sometimes the men would capture them, and they were considered like prisoners, but they weren't
okay.
really prisoners because we didn't have a prison. The only place they could put them was actually this makeshift hospital.
Oh,
So these people were right there where I was. And the reason why I mentioned this because I lost a lot of blood, for example, and I'm O negative, which you can only take O negative blood. And some of the prisoners actually gave me blood. That tells you the
wow.
stupidity of the whole thing. And
Right.
I always say I have Croatian blood in me because it's just because you have to, we can't look at countries, we can't look
Yeah.
at politics, we have to look at people. You know,
Right.
that's a huge thing. So after my injury and having this blood issue, which was a huge thing, that
Yeah.
um there were people that they gave blood several times. One person almost died. They gave me so much blood. I mean, it was just
Holy
this is like
cow.
a huge thing. And then I was told that I would, they had to amputate my toes. That's what they told me. I see, I played at soccer all the time. I played basketball, volleyball, like I was going to be a professional athlete. So for me,
Mm,
athletics were everything. So when they told me they were going to amputate just my toes, and they were like, you're going to fall asleep, you're going to wake up, it'll be over. And I remember I had hernia surgery when I was like, maybe 7, 8 years old.
mm.
I remember just falling asleep, waking up, and I had all this chocolates and all this fruit and juices and cartoon comic books, and
This is going to be
I had
great.
off school. I was like, well, this is great. So
Yeah.
I felt no pain. So I didn't think, I was like, okay, I'll fall asleep and I wake up and whatever it is. And I was thinking they told me they were gonna cut just the toes off on the outside. And I was like, when you
Okay.
play soccer, you hit the ball with the inside
Yeah,
of the
you'd be
foot, so it's not
fine.
a big deal. Totally. I go in, and you have to know, like, I'm kind of in and out of consciousness because I am not
Mm,
in a good place.
right.
And all of a sudden, I feel them cutting my leg off below the knee. And I remember thinking, oh my God, they're cutting it below the knee. Like, what am I going to do for running? And then
Mm,
that point, the burning and pain started to kick in so hard that I was like, wait, why am I awake for this? Like, I have something rubber in my mouth. I can't really, like, I'm tied to the table.
wow.
And I'm like, why am I awake for this? I can hear the doctors talking and I'm like totally freaking out. And all I'm just praying, just like pass out. Like I just want to pass out because it's just like so it's awful.
Oh,
So
oof.
they had amputated my leg. It was the right decision to do. They
Right.
tried really hard to save it. After that, the reason why I'm talking about this is because actually that was not the worst thing in my life. Like I would have my leg amputated without anesthesia, like without even thinking,
Yeah.
to avoid having to deal with PTSD,
Yeah.
with panic attacks, with all of the mental, emotional issues that come along with
Mm,
what happened, that a lot of people in the US and the world are facing on a daily
yeah,
basis. And
right.
we're just not talking about it. So now that I've had my leg amputated, the infection is still there in both of my legs. The other leg is just completely injured and has so many issues. One guy said, who was actually laying in the bed across from me, he said,
Mhm.
I could take a grapefruit and shove it into your heel. Like that is really like, it's just so like
Wow.
flattered. So, in order to fight the infection, what they did is they would cut the disinfected flesh off
Uh-huh.
every morning and every evening. So, this would last about 2 to 3 hours.
I can't
And
even.
yeah, and what I had was I had this little blue teddy bear that a friend of mine gave me, and I
Oh,
would just shove it in my mouth and I would just scream into it till it was over. So even that, this change of dressing that happened 2 times a day for like 2 months, even that was worse than having the ear
yeah.
leg amputated like that. And again, as I mentioned, having having
No.
the PTSD later was really, really awful. But once I was evacuated, I show up, I speak no English. They take
Mm,
me to this makeshift hospital that was like a U.S. Army hospital. It's almost like that the sitcom MASH. It's like a tent,
Yeah.
and there, I don't speak any English. I find an interpreter, and they tell me that they're going to take me into exploratory surgery. They take my blue teddy bear away, which was really like my everything, because they
Right.
just want me to have it. And they say, don't worry, it's going to be, you're going to fall asleep, you're going to wake up, and it's going to be all over. And I was like, they told me that before, they lied.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I totally freaked out. I literally went screaming into the operating room. And because I didn't know the people, I didn't speak the language, and they took the only object I had was my blue teddy bear.
Yeah.
And but they had anesthesia. So I fell asleep. I woke up. I had these clean new bandages. And I remember actually getting the interpreter, and I said to them, tell the doctor this anesthesia is awesome. He can do whatever surgeries he wants. So now, if you look at where I came from, it's all
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
perspective. These surgeries were for me like dental cleaning.
Yeah.
Like it was just, and they happen every day. I had to go under every day because there was so much stuff
Wow.
to cleanse. So I started actually majority of my surgeries that you would consider surgeries that under, and I count surgeries, not just somebody cutting off my leg. I don't even
Right.
count like amputation as a surgery because I was awake for it.
Yeah.
I started counting them then, and I stopped counting at 100 because I got tired of counting. And I was like, I can just say I had
Wow.
over 100 surgeries and then be done with it. So most of my surgeries were in US and Germany. That's when because I had them almost every day.
And
And
was
then
that, what was the time frame of all those surgeries? When were you finally done? Like, how long did it kind of?
well, finally, so like I started off having daily surgeries for probably like 6 months or something like that. So, and there would be a day or two they would skip and stuff like that. Like it was just, it was started to, and then they started to be like one a week. And then they started to be like one a month, one or two a month, something like that. So
Yeah.
it turned like it slowly
Slowing
dwindled
down a little
away
bit.
as they started to fix each issue
Yeah.
on my list. Okay, we have to deal with this. No, let's deal with this. No, let's deal with this. So you have to kind of do it in time. So the last surgery that I had was 15 years later,
Holy
right?
cow.
So it took 15 years to have that. And that's when the PTSD kicked in for me. So it took 15 years for me
Wow.
to recover and have that last surgery. And I remember I had the last surgery. I had ran my first 5K marathon. I was with Brian Fraser. I don't know if you know him, but he
Yeah.
taught me how to run. And
Wow.
because I had forgotten how to run, I've forgotten how to walk. I forgot everything. I didn't
Yeah.
even forget because I didn't walk for so long. I forgot.
Wow.
And so, and when they gave me my first prosthetic leg, they put me in the bars with the handles, and
Yeah.
they were like, "They walk," and I was like, "Well, that's
Yeah.
great. I could see myself running,
Right.
but
It's
I
your
couldn't. I
body.
did not know how to. I did not know how to pick up the leg,
Wow.
and I had to pick it up with my arms and then just like move it and just take it like one little step at a time. And eventually I learned. And then 15 years later, Brian Fraser, he would put a belt
Mhm.
around my waist, and then he would have me run because he said basically it's control falling. So
Yeah.
but we're kids, we don't think about it.
Right.
So I started to run, and eventually I ran my first 5K. And when I was at home, I had my company, I had security, I had finally finished all of my surgeries. That's when PTSD kicked in, and it was
Yeah.
awful.
And I can't even begin to imagine. So one of the things I love to make sure people understand is healing from something we've gone through like this, something very physical, right? An amputation. I truly believe that if we haven't healed emotionally or mentally, it's very hard to control the physical.
Yeah.
And so, like, I've talked to many people that have had horrific accidents based on somebody else's ignorance or stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
And the forgiveness is not there, and they're struggling. And they'll be the ones that'll tell me the phantom pain gets to me. I hate wearing my socket. I can't get up. I can't get moving. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, look at what's holding you back. It's not the amputation, because you see people with
Mm-hmm.
amputations doing everything now. It's what's
Mm-hmm.
going on inside, the war that's inside, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I did hear about, and that's why I had asked you if it would be all right to speak of this. you had the PTSD, you had night terrors. What got you over that? How did you conquer that and bounce back and get out of your mindset that way? What was it that took you there?
So there are several things that play for me. When I had my first panic attack, I thought it was a heart attack. I rushed to ER and they said, "Hey, you're having a panic attack." And I remember laughing at the doctor. I was like, "Dude, if I was going to have a panic attack, you don't think I'd have it like any time before then? Like
Right,
not in Florida. Like I know Florida's bad, but come on, you're like it's not
right,
that bad."
right.
And he was like, "No." And I went to cardiologist. I was sure there was something hidden. So finally it was proven to me. And there was one of my friend who was also a physician. She said to me, because I said to her, I was like, "It doesn't make sense to me why I would be having panic now." And she
Yeah,
said, "Just think of it this way. If you're walking down the street and somebody's trying to steal your purse, they're going to grab your purse. First thing you're going to do is you're going to fight back for your life. Your
yep,
instinct, your fight or flight kicks in. You're going to start kicking them. You might even bite them. You might hit them. They might run away and you save yourself in your purse. It is when your family comes, it is when the ambulances come, that's when you start to shake. That's when
yeah,
it starts to process all that." And she says, "It
yeah.
took you 15 years to be in that survival mode. So now you need that much time to allow all of that stuff to
Wow.
get out of you." So you
Huh?
have that. So I had that thing that I had to deal with to let everything out. And I let everything out. And what that means, I want people to know, is that I crashed.
Mm,
I was non-functional. I was afraid to eat. I was afraid to sleep. I was afraid of wind. I became
mm.
agoraphobic and claustrophobic at the same time. So what I
Wow.
would do is I would go to my front stoop. I would curl in a ball and cry. I had no,
Mm,
I because I couldn't go inside and I was too afraid to go outside. I was afraid of eating, so I would literally cry and eat a little bit of a salad, and then just out of fear would run and have diarrhea. I became afraid of
really?
eating, so I would keep myself awake, which would perpetuate all this stuff. So it became, so what I'm saying here is that
Mm.
people know that it is okay to crash.
Yeah,
And I'm lucky enough to have family around me, to
yeah.
have friends around me that allowed me to be in that space.
Hmm.
They didn't try to understand me. They didn't try to minimize it. They didn't even try to fix it.
Yep.
They allowed me to just be.
Yeah.
And whatever is it that I needed at the moment, they allowed me to do it.
Mm,
That was so your support system is
hmm.
huge in that. The second thing that I had going for me in order to get through all this is that I was always raised to value individuals
Hmm.
more than anything else. And what I mean by that is that even after my injury, and I was asked this question in 1993, and if I was asked this question now in 2023, my answer has always and continues to be the same. I can have a cup of coffee with a guy who threw that bomb, killed my friends, and injured me. I don't have that animosity and
Mm,
anger that's inside of me towards him.
mm,
It does not mean that I justify, am I okay with his
right.
actions? But I do come from a place of empathy
Mm,
because I do not know what is happening in his life.
mm,
Let's face it, the reality is maybe he lost his children. Maybe his boss told him to do it and he just pushed the button.
mm.
Maybe, I don't know what his circumstances,
Right.
and it's my business.
Yeah.
It's none of what is my business is me.
Yep.
For me to have that empathy for individuals and not take on their garbage
Yeah.
as mine has allowed me to be able to look at things a little bit more realistically and have empathy for myself.
Yep.
And that, I think, where a lot of us, because we go into that hindsight mindset,
Yep.
shoulda, woulda,
Yep.
oh, what if I didn't? What if I did? Oh,
Yeah.
so what? What if I told my mom many times as she deals with her survivals,
Right.
as her guilt, I always tell her, "Mom, what if I didn't go down there and get injured? What if I stayed up there and
Right.
3 days later some men raided our house and raped me?
Yeah.
And now I was living with that. Honestly, cut my leg off any time,
Right.
right?"
Um,
So there's always worse from worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I am okay with my faith. I am
Mm-hmm.
okay with what's dealt to me because it was dealt to me, and if it wasn't dealt to me, I wouldn't be able to handle it, and I know I could handle it. And
Yeah.
here's the thing: anyone can handle anything.
Yeah.
I can sit here and say, oh, Maya did this, Maya this. The reality is, if you were in my shoes, Angie, you
Yeah.
would be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Let's fix it. You just
Yeah.
you just did your life didn't present you with those circumstances. You had other
Right.
challenges that you had to do
Yeah.
and deal with that are different than mine.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that. I mean, that couldn't be more and more true. And last week, I was just talking about being grateful for the people that surround us because they allowed us that space. They were there as a shoulder to cry on. They were there to make laughter when we couldn't laugh. They were there to just cheer us on when things were going great. And they were there just to understand and try to be there for us when we didn't know what was happening. And so, I mean, I value my support system, and I know not everyone is so lucky to have a
Mhm.
lot of people around. And I do know that reality, but having tried to talk to other people, knowing I feel like I'm in a very blessed situation, there are people that live alone that are going through this. They're sad, they're lonely. But one thing that struck me with you is Rosie, because I have talked to a few people that live alone, but they do have their pets. So I said,
Mhm.
sometimes your support person isn't a person, it's a companion animal. So how did you and Rosie meet, and how long after all this,
Mhm.
when the PTSD started, did this trigger looking for Rosie?
Not quite actually. I was about, I was like a 2/3 way into the horrible
Mm,
PTSD. At this point, I had already like reached the peak of the worst times and
yeah,
started figure out because I have never taken any medications, and that's not to say that people shouldn't take medications. That
right.
just happens to be my path.
Yeah,
So I wanted to feel everything raw, and that was my choice. Like I wanted to understand myself and a human psyche and human
yeah,
being emotions, and that's why I chose to do it. I'm not trying. I just
okay.
want to make sure people don't feel like
Right,
something wrong with medications. No,
right.
but so I had already figured out. I take like these herbs, like Chinese herbs and stuff like that, to help me calm down and all this stuff. And I have specific things that I do, and I had to get my leg work done. And I went to Hanger Clinic,
Mhm.
and my clinician at that time, Chris, he's still my clinician. I went to work with him, and I had just started to not be afraid to drive, but I was still afraid of, for example, bridges. So I did, like, it was my goal to get myself there, and they actually in Sarasota, and I
You
get myself in Sarasota.
did you have
Mhm.
to go over the big bridge?
Yeah, over the Skyway Bridge. Yeah, I had to go over the Skyway
You're like,
Bridge.
that's like
I
one of the
know, like
biggest bridges I know. Yeah. Oh,
and the signal cuts off, and it was really scary, but I was like, little by little, that's how I did it, little by little.
oh,
Like
goodness
today
sakes.
I have to get up and brush my teeth, and that's my goal
Yeah,
today. And
yeah.
and tomorrow I'm gonna go across the bridge, and that's what it was. I went across the bridge, and I went to go work with my leg. And Chris says to me, "Hey, Maya, have you ever thought about getting a dog?" And I
Oh,
was like, "Chris, I cannot take care of myself, let alone a puppy."
right.
And he's like, no, 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 you should really look at this dog. It's a Great Dane. And as soon as he said a Great Dane, it's been since I was like, I don't know, 5, 6 years, I always wanted to have a Great Dane. But I knew when I
Really?
grew up, I would have a Great Dane. And as soon as he said a Great Dane, and they're not dogs you see frequently either.
No.
So,
Uh-uh.
like, really, yeah, especially like a purebred, really good quality
Mhm.
Great Dane. And he shows me this cute little Great Dane, but I look at it and she's got little tiny prosthetic. And I'm like, oh my God, a Great Dane with a prosthetic leg. I was like, Chris, this is my dog. I need to have this dog.
Oh,
Like, this is like, as soon as I saw her, I was like, this is my dog.
oh my
So I was like, how do I
gosh.
get her? He's like, he's like, well, I don't know, just go to the website and see if you could. So I go to the rescue website, and I don't see her listed there. And I say to them, and I write him a letter. She
Oh,
looks like she's been adopted. So I write him a letter, and I say, this is why I think I should have Rosie. I don't know what's happening with Rosie, but it's why I should have her. 2 days later, I get a call from the president of the rescue, and she says to me, Maya, I just want to let you know that Rosie was adopted about 2 weeks ago. We have a family for her. And she said, but I have not made it public announcement yet because I felt like Rosie was waiting for something bigger and better. And I think we were waiting for you.
Oh my gosh.
So she said, "You're getting Rosie, but you need to give me a week so I could talk to the board of directors and clean up the mess that I'm about to make." So
Oh,
a week later, I waited. I got this little tiny puppy, and I was just happy to have a Great Dane and a puppy. Like it just made like it instantly felt this connection.
mm,
And I didn't have her. You have to think like she was a few month old puppy, and I didn't even have her for a few weeks when I had a panic attack, and it
oh,
was a pretty bad one. And I was walking around the house, like that's what I do when I have it. Now I had a
yeah,
system, right? Walk around the house. I
can
was
handle it.
crying. I started to take my herbs. I know what's gonna do, like, and I'm just kind of getting through it. But she kept following me. She kept leaning into me, and she finally cornered me against a wall.
As a
And I
puppy.
as a puppy, and I took her face, and I was, and through tears I was crying. I remember saying to her, I was like, "I know you're trying to help, but just please leave me alone. I got to do this." And she's just standing there firm, like she's not even looking away and going away. And I was like, I think she's trying to tell me something. And I instantly noticed that she went from moving to not moving, like she's standing there staring at me. I was like, I think she wants me to follow her, but this is a tiny puppy, they don't calm down. And she literally
Mm-mm.
stops, and she turns around, and I start following her. She takes me to the living room, through like the dining room hallway and to the living room. She goes on the floor, lays on a side with her paws like this. And I'm like, I think I'm just going to do what she seems to be telling me. So I lay next to her. I put my head on her chest, and I give her like a hug. And it was even maybe 30 seconds. I start to calm down.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I was like, oh my God, this is like medication. Like
This is
that's what,
beautiful.
yeah. And I started to breathe with her, and we calmed down. And
Mm.
that's when I recognized that she actually had this amazing talent. And I trained her as my service dog. So it all just became purely somewhat accidental.
Well, and I would say, I don't even know if accidental, because I truly believe that certain people give off certain auras or certain
Mm-hmm.
vibes, and they're that feeling, that calm.
Mm-hmm.
She saw that in you. She could read you, but more importantly, you were watching. You were
Mm-hmm.
open to that. Some people don't, like that. Your first instinct was like, leave me alone, because you were
Yeah.
trying to deal, but
Mm-hmm.
you gave her the space to express something to you, and you just had to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention. Our animals are so intuitive. They know a lot more than we give them credit for. And I use a horse that way.
Oh
So
wow.
I've gotten into equine therapy and going through horse training right now. And the other day I had a really bad day, and I just couldn't figure out why I wasn't emotionally handling it well. And I'm usually pretty chill. And I had to go the next morning to go with her. And she finally, I mean, we had been having gusty winds. I mean, it's been really
Mm-hmm.
windy here. And normally you wouldn't want to be around horses because they get spooked and they can run. I sat on the middle of her big open area. She kind of watched me. She did some circles around me, kicked the ground, and laid right next to me. And
Oh.
she had her arms this way. For the first time ever, I've leaned against her belly where her feet are, which, they're
Oh.
big. Like she could hurt me
Yeah.
with that. And I just laid up against her body like I was in a big reclining chair, and just rubbed her front leg and back leg, and just felt her warmth because it was freezing. And
Oh.
it was, she saw in me that I was willing to relax, and I needed something. They reflect us and everything. And
Uh-huh.
so I truly believe, like when you say accidental, Rosie knew what you needed, but you were
Yeah.
willing, you were
It was.
open to that, which is so cool. Like you unleashed her potential
Mm-hmm.
by being able to see what she was trying to express to you. And I think that's a beautiful story. Now, she has some special gifts too. I didn't even realize this till I started really delving into some of your videos. What is one of her gifts that people have bought from her?
She has so many talents, but I will tell you, so for PTSD, for me, one of the things that I did was, and still continue to do, is art therapy. So I started with like paint by numbers, and then they got a little boring, so just to calm down.
Okay, yeah.
So I painted this huge painting for my dining room that was on the floor, and I used to paint it, and she would just get into my paints. Like she's very intuitive, she's very connected to me,
Mm-hmm.
she's very intelligent. And I allow her to do whatever she wants. I genuinely do. Like I just want her to be the best that she could be and do whatever she wants. Like that's so she was getting into my paints, and finally I was like, okay, if she was making a mess, and I was like, you know what, you want to paint, I will make you a paintbrush. So that's exactly what I did. I took a regular paintbrush, and I don't know if people know that little wooden tee that
Uh-huh.
they have when they make crepes. I
Yeah.
took that, I put it on a brush, and I taped it with a little
Um,
bubble wrap, and I gave her a brush, and she started painting. And I was like, I was thinking that I would have to train her. So I set up all these cameras to see how I train my dog to paint.
yeah.
It took like 3 minutes. I didn't even have time to turn on camera. I just gave her the brush and dipped it in, and she started paint. And she's painted almost 200 original paintings and sold. They all come like with this little certificate and her paw print
Oh,
and a video of her painting, and it's really it's been really adorable, and it gives her something to do, because she loves it. And I have now cut down on my painting because every time I pull out paints, she thinks she's painting. So unless I want to paint with her, I don't paint.
oh my gosh, I love it. And I will make sure I get where people can check that out, and so I can put it in the notes on this, because I'm dying to see these. This is great. I mean, I was watching people saying, I bought one of Rosie's paintings. And I'm like, what? So I'm like, I gotta
Yeah.
find this video. And that's so sweet.
We just did a keynote speech, because that's what I do. I'm a keynote
Mhm.
speaker. We did for Caterpillar, the huge
Yeah.
organization. And what they wanted was they did an employee auction, silent auction, and it was one of Rosie's paintings. And they
Aw.
painted it in the Caterpillar colors, and it was really, really so much fun. So yeah,
Does
she
she,
just
I saw her painting on a little canvas. Does she paint big canvases?
Yeah, we painted like there was an Aveda shop where she painted like this whole setup of like three,
What?
four different things in their colors. Yeah. Because I just put a canvas in, and I don't tell her, like, I'm sure you've seen like elephants and dogs paint,
Right.
but they paint like a house or trees or something. Like they
Yeah.
can't, they're
Right.
basically trained to do these brush strokes.
Right.
When Rosie paints, she just does whatever she wants on a canvas. I never taught her and tell her to do this or this. Whatever comes out on canvas for her is what comes out on canvas for her. And so I let her do it. So I put a canvas in front of her, no matter what size, and she just paints it. And that's just how it is.
Well, and
And I will tell you, accidentally, like through this, the first painting she ever painted, I'll send you a picture. It is a little puppy chasing a bull. Like it's just like an abstract shape of a
yeah,
puppy chasing a bull. She's painted dolphins. She's painted Great Danes, their profiles. She's painted flamingos. She's painted a racer, a wheelchair racer.
that's
Like
the one I saw.
yeah,
I
like
think
it's
I
just
saw.
been incredible how stuff comes out.
Okay, I'm just totally curious about this. So and if anybody that's listening to this, you have to look at the videos, because it's not like, if I were to I were to give my dog a paintbrush, one, they'd probably drop them. They're chihuahuas. Um, but they would just probably run around the house and my walls would be painted. Rosie actually has brush strokes. Like, she brushes one way a couple times and then she backs up and she starts at a different point. Not like a
Mhm.
little child just doing this in the center and you get all these crayon colors all over each other. Does
Mhm.
do you ever, is it like clouds? Like, I see an elephant in the cloud. Is that
Yes, it's exactly like that. It's
okay?
exactly
Because I mean, I could see the beginning of a wheelchair, and yes, subliminally you see what you named it, but you're like, oh yeah, I see that. But when you said that she's painted this, and
yeah.
I watched the
Because I
brush
haven't
strokes.
I didn't even start to pay attention to these. I would just give her the canvas. She does whatever she does, and I sent these to people that have ordered them. So what I was seeing is comments on Facebook come back and say, "Oh my gosh, she painted a Great Dane." And she's done Great Dane so many times that there are Great Dane breeders who have contacted me and said, "Next Great Dane painting she paints, I want it." I was like, I don't tell her. I don't know how to make that happen.
Let's go, Rosie. Let's go.
They were like, I want one with the Great Danes. I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I didn't tell
Oh
her.
my
I have no
gosh.
idea. Like, if it comes out, it comes out. I mean, we had one incident. I think the reason for that is that actually she's intuitive and connected to energetic source,
Yeah.
and actually knows in some ways that we're probably none of us are privy to, that has this information floating, because the wheelchair thing was actually painted for a person who was disabled. The Great Dane was given to the person that was a dog lover. Like there was a connect there. That's why I never change or touch anything, because I don't know what's energetically connected and inside that, and what the person that ordered that. So we had one incident where I had given a speech, and the CEO of the company said to me, learn about Rosie, and he said, I want one of her paintings. He's like, I'm going to go online and order it. I said, you don't have to order it. I'll get you one. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I go home and we paint the painting, and I send it to him. And I was like, what colors do you want? Because that's the options when you order it. You could pick a color, or you could have Rosie pick colors. He's like, have Rosie pick colors. Okay. And what happens is that she just picks whatever. I don't really care. Like, who cares really?
Right.
So I just got the colors and she painted them. I went to his office to drop off the painting, and he just literally gets this look on his face and just goes white. And I was like, are you okay? Like, I thought for a second,
are you disappointed?
Well, I thought there was something inappropriate, which she has also painted on the canvas. And I was like, is everything? And I maybe didn't see it. I don't know. And I was like, everything okay? He said, could you close the door to his office? I closed the door to his office. So him and his CMO, chief marketing officers, were privy to only one document that they have created, because the entire company is going through restructuring and rebranding. And the colors that Rosie picked are the brand new colors that they have picked for the new company. Like the two same turquoise and orange color that they picked. That is exact, like almost to the shade. He shows me this document. He said, this is confidential. There's one person in my company that has this document. And he says, look at these colors. And he showed it to me. I was like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I was like,
she has a gift.
That's what you see what I'm saying. So that's why I'm like, whatever she paints, she paints. I mean, it's just what comes out, comes out.
That is so cool. I mean, just even being around that's got to be so therapeutic for you too, because you see the magnificence in that, and the simpleness in it, and yet the profound effect it has on everyone else. And sometimes when we step outside of our own circumstances, right, and we start to bless other people, we fill our own bucket up, and then we can conquer anything.
You got it. That is why I do what I do. That is why I speak. I mean, I have an IT background. I have a couple IT clients, and let me tell you, I could make a gazillion more money doing that. But I speak because I see that profound difference. And from what we touched upon earlier, which is a lot of people don't have that support system. So we have to be here to find ways to add to those little droplets to allow people to just live their best life in any way they can. And when I do that, it fills me up. It seems altruistic, but it's actually really selfish.
And actually my subtitle to my podcast is Living Your Best Life. Empowering women or empowering amputees to live their best life. So, I mean, right there, I don't know. I think we're going to go with this whole aura that's happening right now with you guys and us, and say that is a beautiful way to wrap this podcast up, because I think, thank you. I mean, I'm filled. I'm excited. I can't wait for this to reach people. And I hope that we can stay connected, because I love the messages, and I love the fact that, that Rosie is just a big part of your life. And I'm so grateful that whatever path led us together.
Absolutely.
And Maja, it's been a complete honor to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me. Anytime. I will come back.
I love it. Well, thank you. And we will definitely have you back on again. We'll see where you all are at in maybe another year, and maybe next April we'll do this again. But until then, you and Rosie stay happy and healthy. And I hope you feel completely blessed, and you've blessed my life, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.